Imagine being the backbone of a hit reality show. Then one day, the producer looks you in the eye and says, "It's over." That's exactly what just happened on Love and Marriage Huntsville, and trust me, nobody saw this coming. Carlos King didn't just change the show, he set it on fire. The couple fans called the foundation of Love and Marriage Huntsville has just been cut out. The question is, did he save the show or destroy it? What happens when the stars of a reality show start fighting the producer for control? Well, Carlos King just answered that question in the boldest way possible, and fans can't stop talking about it. Last night, Love and Marriage Huntsville changed forever. A decision so bold, so ruthless, it split the entire fan base in two. And at the center of it all, Carlos King and the Scotts. Alright, raindrops, buckle up. Tonight's live YouTube show is diving straight into Love and Marriage Huntsville. And let me tell you, Carlos King didn't just flip the script, he tossed the whole book into the fire. The man who built the entire Love and Marriage franchise just made a move that nobody saw coming, not even his biggest critics. At 45, Carlos told Marsau and LaTisha Scott their time on the show was over. And this wasn't some quiet, behind-the-scenes goodbye. No whispers. No soft exit. He made it loud, clear, and impossible to ignore. Instantly, the fan base split in two. Some people cheered, saying it was long overdue. Others were furious, calling it the biggest mistake in the show's history. To really understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to rewind. The Scotts weren't just any couple, they were the foundation of Love and Marriage Huntsville. From the very beginning, when Carlos King introduced the world to three powerhouse couples, Marsau and LaTisha were placed right at the center of the storm. They weren't filler characters or background noise. They embodied something bigger: ambition, resilience, and the image of Black excellence in both family life and business. LaTisha was often seen as the steady heartbeat of the marriage. She came across as quiet, thoughtful, and reserved at first, but there was always a strength underneath. Over time, viewers watched her grow more confident, more outspoken, and more willing to stand up for herself. Her story was a journey of self-discovery, one that many women watching at home related to deeply. On the other side, Marsau was everything she wasn't. He was blunt, opinionated, and old school in his values. He had no issues speaking his mind, even when it stirred conflict. And more often than not, it did. Their dynamic was the definition of combustible, two very different personalities clashing, but also balancing each other in a way that made for great television. That combination, LaTisha's quiet strength and Marsau's bold, sometimes polarizing presence, was magnetic. They fought, they made up, they clashed with castmates, and they navigated the highs and lows of marriage and entrepreneurship in front of the cameras. Audiences didn't just watch them, they debated about them. Social media lit up with discussions after every episode, some defending LaTisha's loyalty, others criticizing Marsau's traditional mindset. Whether you love them or love to hate them, the Scotts gave people something to talk about. But their importance went beyond the drama. From the very start, the Scotts represented stability. Their businesses weren't just props for the show, they were real. They weren't pretending to be successful for the cameras, they actually were. Their ventures in construction, restaurants, and the Black Cigar Lounge gave viewers a window into what modern Black entrepreneurship looked like in the South. For a lot of fans, that mattered. It made the show feel rooted in reality, not just scripted storylines. That's part of why Carlos's decision to remove them landed like an earthquake. You can replace drama, there will always be someone willing to argue on camera. But you can't easily replace authenticity. And for many viewers, the Scotts were a big part of what made Love and Marriage Huntsville feel authentic. Still, the truth is, their relationship with production was never simple. Behind the polished episodes, there was a growing storm. Reports suggest that over the years, the Scotts became increasingly frustrated with how they were being portrayed. LaTisha felt editing made her appear weak, overshadowing her growth. Marsau often complained that his blunt statements were cut into sound bites that made him look controlling or dismissive. Whenever the audience turned on them online, the Scotts didn't just shrug it off, they blamed Carlos and his team. That tension grew into something harder to manage. Rumors swirled that the couple began pushing back, demanding more say in what got shown and refusing to film certain scenes. In the world of reality TV, that's almost a death sentence. Reality shows thrive on unpredictability and raw drama. If the stars start censoring themselves, the entire machine grinds to a halt. And Carlos, a veteran in the industry, knew that better than anyone. From his perspective, the show couldn't bend to the demands of one couple, no matter how important they were. He had to keep the momentum going, and that meant making tough choices. So, instead of quietly phasing them out, he made a decisive move. According to insiders, Carlos looked the Scotts in the eye and told them it was over. No sugarcoating, no gentle fade-out, just a clean break. And then, to make things crystal clear, he went public. He didn't use names, but his words carried weight. The show was bigger than any single couple. The message was simple: no one was untouchable. Within hours, fans connected the dots. The Scotts were gone. The reaction was immediate and explosive. On one side, viewers celebrated the decision, calling it a chance for fresh energy and less recycled drama. On the other, fans were heartbroken, insisting the heart of the show had been ripped out. Suddenly, Love and Marriage Huntsville wasn't just a reality series, it was the center of a debate about loyalty, authenticity, and who really made the show what it was. Marsau and LaTisha didn't stay silent either. Their social media accounts became platforms for carefully chosen, pointed messages. LaTisha posted cryptic quotes about love, loyalty, and silence speaking louder than words. Marsau shared a photo outside the Black Cigar Lounge, captioned with a not-so-subtle jab about people flipping the tables that others had built. They never named Carlos, but the implication was loud and clear. Fans quickly picked sides, and the community split into tribes. Team Carlos praised him for taking control and keeping the franchise alive. Team Scott insisted the couple was the franchise and that Carlos had cut out the very foundation of what made the show special. And so, the fallout grew. The Scotts' exit wasn't just about two people leaving a TV show. It was about a shift in power, in culture, and in how reality television itself is shaped. Carlos wanted to remind everyone that the camera doesn't belong to the cast, it belongs to the producer. And the Scotts, whether they agreed or not, were proof of that truth. At its core, this wasn't just a casting change. It was a battle for ownership of the story. The Scotts believed they had earned the right to shape their narrative. Carlos believed no one could rise above the franchise. And in that clash, a whole new era of love and marriage, Huntsville was born. But behind the cameras, things weren't so pretty. Over time, trust turned into tension. The Scotts hated how they were being portrayed. LaTisha felt the edits made her look weak. Marsau didn't like being cut into clips that painted him as shady or controlling. And when fans dragged them online, they didn't blame the viewers, they blamed Carlos. That's when the cracks really started to show. What began as small frustrations slowly turned into full-blown resistance. Reports say Marsau and LaTisha began pushing back in ways the production team had never dealt with before. They wanted more say in what aired, more control over their image, and at times, they even refused to film scenes they thought would make them look bad. In the world of reality TV, that's almost the same as writing your own exit slip. Shows like Love and Marriage Huntsville thrive on raw moments, the good, the bad, and the messy. The more unfiltered, the better. But if the stars start censoring the drama, the entire formula falls apart. Audiences don't tune in for carefully managed storylines. They tune in for sparks, chaos, and the kind of honesty you can't script. And Carlos King? He's not just another producer. He's the ringmaster of this circus. His job isn't simply to capture footage, it's to keep the fire burning hot enough that people can't look away. Carlos built his career on understanding how to turn everyday disagreements into cultural moments. He knows what makes a scene pop and what keeps fans tweeting long after an episode ends. From his perspective, if the Scotts were holding back, they weren't just protecting themselves, they were putting the whole show at risk. Behind the scenes, tension thickened. Crew members whispered about difficult shoots, sudden cancellations, and scenes that never made it to air because the Scotts didn't want them filmed. LaTisha, in particular, was said to be frustrated with how editing portrayed her. She didn't want to look like the passive wife standing in her husband's shadow. Meanwhile, Marsau bristled at being painted as controlling or dismissive, claiming the edits twisted his words into something he never intended. At first, production tried to smooth things over. Reality shows often deal with cast members who hate their edits. A sit-down meeting here, a private reassurance there, it's part of the process. But this time, it wasn't just about edits. It was about power. The Scotts didn't just want tweaks, they wanted control. They wanted a seat at the table where storylines were shaped. For Carlos, that was a line he couldn't let them cross. Reality TV is messy by design. If cast members start calling the shots, the whole premise collapses. Imagine an unscripted show where the stars get to veto every scene that makes them look bad. What's left? Smiles, polite dinners, and carefully staged moments, everything audiences hate. The more the Scotts resisted, the clearer it became that Carlos had to make a choice. Was he going to let the couple dictate the tone of his franchise, or was he going to remind everyone who was in charge? So, quietly at first, he started exploring other options. Sources say Carlos began scouting new couples, fresh energy, and storylines that could carry the weight if the Scotts were no longer around. He understood something important. Reality TV doesn't stop for anyone. The cameras keep rolling, whether you're in the frame or not. And yet, Carlos didn't take the easy route. He could have let the Scotts slowly fade into the background, giving them less screen time until fans barely noticed their absence. Instead, he made a bold decision. According to insiders, he sat Marsau and LaTisha down, looked them directly in the eyes, and told them their time was up. No sugarcoating, no long explanation, just the truth. Then, as if to drive the point home, he went public. Without mentioning names, he used his platform to say what needed to be said. The show is bigger than any one couple. It was a statement, but also a warning to everyone else. No matter how important you think you are, no one is untouchable. The reaction was immediate. Fans pieced together what had happened within hours. Hashtags exploded. Some viewers cheered Carlos for standing his ground, calling it a smart move to protect the integrity of the franchise. Others were outraged, insisting that removing the Scotts was like ripping the heart out of the show. For the Scotts, the fallout was personal. They didn't sit quietly and accept the decision. Instead, they took to social media with cryptic but pointed messages. LaTisha shared quotes about loyalty, love, and silence speaking louder than words. Marsau posted a photo outside the Black Cigar Lounge with the caption, "Some people forget who built the table they're now flipping." They didn't name Carlos directly, but the target was clear. Suddenly, the debate went beyond the show. It became a conversation about power, loyalty, and ownership. Fans split into tribes, Team Carlos versus Team Scott. One side argued that Carlos was right to keep the franchise moving, even if it meant cutting ties. The other claimed the Scotts had been the backbone all along, and without them, the show would lose its soul. Through it all, Carlos never flinched. On a podcast episode released shortly after the news broke, he doubled down. He spoke about how entitlement can kill creativity, and how some cast members start to believe they are the show instead of being part of it. He didn't use names, but everyone knew exactly who he meant. And in that moment, the shift was complete. The Scotts were gone, the franchise was still standing, and Carlos had reasserted his control. Whether fans loved or hated the decision, they couldn't deny one thing: it had changed the game. Because in reality TV, the drama is only part of the story. The real question is always, who's holding the camera and who gets to decide what the world sees? So, while the Scotts fought back, Carlos started scouting fresh faces and new storylines. He didn't ease them out quietly either. According to insiders, he sat them down, looked them in the eye, and said, "It's over." No sugarcoating. And then, he went public on his own platform. He didn't drop names, but the message was loud and clear. The show is bigger than any one couple. That's when the internet exploded. Fans pieced it together within hours. Carlos had finally cut the Scotts. The question started buzzing everywhere. Without them, is Love and Marriage still the same show? This wasn't just a casting change, it was a cultural shift. Removing the couple that helped define the brand sent a warning shot to every cast member: loyalty won't save you. One bad meeting and you could be next. The fallout was instant. Marsau and LaTisha didn't stay quiet. Their social media pages became battlefields. LaTisha posted cryptic quotes like, "When the love is gone, loyalty means nothing. Sometimes silence speaks the loudest." Marsau dropped his own shade, a photo in front of the Black Cigar Lounge with the caption, "Some people forget who built the table they're now flipping." They didn't need to say Carlos's name. The timing, tone, and energy said it all. Fans immediately picked sides. Some showered them with love, declaring, "You two made the show." Others snapped back, "This isn't betrayal. It's accountability." It was almost like there had always been two versions of the show, one where the Scotts were its backbone, and another where they were its biggest headache. And Carlos? He doubled down. On a podcast episode just days later, he didn't hide behind polite words. He talked about how entitlement can ruin creativity and how some cast members start believing they are the show instead of being part of it. He didn't have to drop names. Everyone knew who he was talking about. The reaction was nuclear. Fans flooded comment sections with hot takes and fire emojis. Meanwhile, the rest of the cast felt the aftershocks. Melody Holt stayed silent in public, which many say was a smart power move. Other newer couples? Let's just say they started to sweat. Because Carlos's message was clear, nobody is untouchable. They made Huntsville feel real. Without them, the network had to figure out how to keep the series from drifting into something too staged or hollow. Rumors of replacements spread quickly. Some whispered about a flashy young couple from Birmingham, a real estate mogul with a YouTube following and a messy personal life. Others claimed Carlos was considering bringing back faces from earlier seasons. Whatever the case, it wasn't just about filling a gap. Carlos wanted to rebuild the house from the ground up, new energy, new loyalty, and a new direction. Not everyone bought into the idea. Some longtime fans argued the Scotts were the heart of the series and that removing them meant removing the soul of Huntsville. Others were relieved, saying it was time to stop recycling apologies and excuses. One thing was clear, Carlos had taken a massive gamble. The industry noticed. Executives from other networks started talking. Some praised his boldness, others quietly questioned whether he had gone too far. Reality TV is built on chaos, yes, but it only works if the people creating that chaos feel protected. By cutting out 2 original stars without warning, Carlos sent an unmistakable message. This isn't your show, it's mine. Some saw it as a power move, others as a dangerous precedent, but everyone agreed. The move shifted the genre. The absence of the Scotts left a visible hole. Entire storylines unraveled. Black Cigar Lounge, once a staple location, was no longer available. Schedules had to be rewritten, and whole episodes were scrapped. Crew members who had worked side by side with the Scotts for years suddenly had to adjust to a new rhythm on set. For some, it felt refreshing. For others, it felt like something essential had been lost. But Marsau and LaTisha weren't sitting idle. Word spread quickly that they were already planning a new project. Not just YouTube content, but a full reality series built around their family, their businesses, and most importantly, their perspective. Streaming platforms were said to be interested. Insiders described the concept as less manipulated, more transparent. And one line stood out: Carlos won't be holding the camera this time. That possibility sent shockwaves online. Fans divided into 2 solid camps, one side backing Carlos and the future of the franchise, the other pledging loyalty to the Scotts and whatever they built next, even if it meant walking away from Huntsville. This wasn't just another round of TV drama. It was war. And while the Scotts plotted their next chapter, Carlos was already building bigger plans. He teased new spin-offs, new cities, and new power couples. His vision was clear: expand so far and wide that no single cast member could ever hold the franchise hostage again. If Huntsville stumbled, there would be DC, Atlanta, or even more cities waiting. OWN backed the plan with full force. Promotions for the new season leaned into the tension. Trailers blurred faces, teased quotes, and turned the Scotts' absence into a mystery fans had to solve. The question was no longer why they left, it became what happens now that they're gone. That shift kept the ratings steady. In fact, they climbed. Still, one question hung in the air: was Carlos King right? Time would decide. If new couples clicked, if storylines stayed sharp, and if viewers kept watching, he'd be praised as a visionary who took the franchise to the next level. But if the spark faded, if fans drifted, and if newcomers failed to deliver, the blame would land squarely on him. The Scotts may be gone from Love and Marriage Huntsville, but their story is far from finished. Whether they launch their own show or come back stronger on another platform, they're not done. Neither is Carlos. Because in reality TV, the biggest power isn't the drama, it's the person who controls the camera when it rolls.